All right, so I'm Ivan Rakelin, retired Lieutenant Colonel, Green Beret, constitutional attorney. I want people to listen closely. Our institutions have utterly failed us across the board. So 4 years ago, January 6, 2021, there was what's called a Fedsurrection that took place at the United States Capitol. Part of the op was a diversionary operation within the jurisdictional zone of the U.S. Capitol Police and the Metropolitan Police Department right here at the Democrat National Committee, DNC. For those that don't remember, too young, or just learning or hearing this for the first time because you've been infused with such woke mind virus information, let me step you through. Come with me. The reason why I'm doing this is because no one else is. Not Barry Loudermilk's committee, not Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, not Jim Jordan. They have done nothing to this point. So now we have to take it into our own hands and show what actually needs to be exposed to the country. As long as Elon Musk allows us to speak, I will continue to do the job of Barry Loudermilk and his staff, Jim Jordan and that committee, the Judiciary and Weaponization before that, and Speaker Mike Johnson. Also, I'm going to be doing the job of John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, and the Senate Rules Chairman, which is Senator Mitch McConnell. Also, I'm going to be doing the job of the Department of Justice, the ATF, the Metropolitan Police Department, the DC Mayor's Office. Why? Because they're not doing it for America. So follow along with me. Let's take a look right here. Approximately here was a bench. And you can see the video. Other people have put this information out. There was a pipe bomb placed right here on January 5th, the evening prior to January 6th. Well, guess what? When you place that pipe bomb here, as an investigator, what do? What evidence can lead us to get more information about that placement of the pipe bomb? I look around and see, oh wait, the DNC. Let's take a look. There's a camera right there. See it? That camera has an angle which would cover the placement of the pipe bomb, okay? That's camera 1. Then we can go over here and see, oh wait, there's a second camera right over the garage right there. So then it begs the question, who controls those cameras? It's the head of security at the DNC. Well, let's take a look and talk to and subpoena and go ahead and compel testimony of the person that was on duty at the DNC running the entire security for this building. Wouldn't that be basic investigation 101? And why don't we do this publicly? I tried doing that, but as a private citizen, I can't compel someone inside the DNC to testify. Well, guess what? We're now going to move our investigation to a little bit more aggressive than what I've done in the past. We're going to identify the individual of who that was that worked that day and had all the video and controlled all the video from a security perspective at the DNC. We'll find out who the name of the person is, their address, their phone number, their vehicle make, model, type. And we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of scrutiny on that individual from birth to today on who they are, what their background is, what their relationships are, etc. We're going to scrub everything, every single digital trace that they've left in their entire life. Why? Because no one else is doing it. If you want to help, by all means, reach out to me. Let's move forward. Not only does the DNC have its video cameras right here that would have showed us the details of the pipe bomber, but there are some other silos of evidence that we should look at. If you look up top on that building, and I've seen this footage by the CCTV footage of the U.S. Capitol Police, see some of those cameras right up there? That's U.S. Capitol Police CCTV footage. For those that are like, oh wait, why does U.S. Capitol Police have cameras up there? It's because that building upon which those cameras are is U.S. Capitol Police offices. Mr. Barry Loudermilk, Mr. Jim Jordan, Mr. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, DOJ, ATF, Metropolitan Police Department. Duh. You don't like how I talk? Well, guess what? America doesn't like how you act, which is you do nothing. So now it's my turn. I'm taking over the investigation. Next, you see right here? Look at that cross the stoplight. You see a camera right there? Right below the green? That is a camera. Okay? The question is, who controls that camera? Well, guess what? The street is controlled by the Metropolitan Police Department, meaning the District of Columbia, meaning Mayor Bowser at the top. At the time, Chief of Capitol Police, Contee, Contee. I want to know who was running all of the videos that day on January 5th. Again, this is not the first time I'm doing this, folks. This is the third or fourth time I've done a video on this. I'm just doing it yet again because we gave a little bit of leeway because up until January 2023, the Democrats controlled all investigative agencies, right? Whether it's the White House, whether it was the House, the Senate. But in January of 2023, that's when the Republicans took over the House. And guess what they did? Oh, they released most of the CCTV footage. That's basically it. Did they investigate any of the stuff like, oh, Thomas Massey, he uncovered that there was a pipe bomb and that it was fishy. Okay, great. Where's the arrest? None. Okay, so why don't we take a look at all the video evidence from the Metropolitan Police cameras, whether it's there that will showcase the placement of the pipe bomb, whether it's the Capitol Police cameras up there, okay, whether it's the DC Metro here, and what else? Is it possible that there was a Tesla driving by with a camera that may have recorded during that period of time on January 5th, this particular area? Hey, Elon, you might want to look at your holdings. Oh, and by the way, didn't the pipe bomb placement dude or gal have a cell phone? Why don't we look at the records of Sprint, Verizon, T-Mobile, who else? AT&T, right? And take a look and see if there's a GPS trace or a triangulation of a signal. There's a cell phone tower somewhere around here, right? I'm sure. Let's keep moving. Remember the pipe bomber over here at the DNC walked this way. Take a look. See those cameras right there? Boom, boom, boom. Several might have gotten an angle, but probably just only two. Now there's some video evidence showing out there that just half a block up right here is where the video footage shows that the pipe bomber with the little backpack was right over here in front of one of these townhouses. I wonder if there's a Ring camera that was there at the time. We know today you have Ring cameras. See? That one's got a Ring camera to it. I wonder if we have a Ring camera, if there was a Ring camera that day that recorded. Maybe we need to contact the company Ring. If I were running the investigation and not a complete dumbass, I would reach out to the company Ring. What about here? You see a Ring camera there? Why, yes, we do, folks. I mean, I'm nobody here. I'm nobody until I'm somebody because the other people that are supposed to be doing this aren't doing their job. Maybe there's a Ring camera here. Remember? The pipe bomber, I think, was right in front of this building, if I'm not mistaken, was standing here, you know, looking around, blah, blah, blah. I wonder where that video camera angle came from. Could it have been from that camera right there? See it right there on the lamp post? Or could it have been from the lamp camera right there? From that lamp post? Begs the question, who controls those cameras? Hey, the DC, District of Columbia Police. And we keep moving on, right? Any other Ring cameras around here? Or other companies? Again, we're 4 years later. What has your beloved Barry Loudermilk done? What has your beloved Jim Jordan done? You know what? What has your beloved government done? Nothing. All they've been doing is covering up, slow walking, limited hangout. Nothing. They're all in on it, folks. Why would the Republicans expose the people that are protecting them? So if the U.S. Capitol Police was in on it, which they were at the highest levels, and then some of the folks that were perjuring themselves in courts throughout the last 4 years also were in on it through the cover-up, why would Republicans try to expose the truth? Why would the Democrats expose the truth? The Democrats are interested in not exposing the truth because it will prove the Fedsurrection. The Republicans don't want it because the same people that have dirt on them, if you're the sergeant at arms, if you're a senior Capitol Police official, you have dirt on most members of Congress, okay? And when you have dirt on the very people that are supposed to investigate you, Well, those people aren't going to investigate you because you have leverage over them. That's why we haven't gotten to any truth about January 6th. No one in our government wants to get to it because they're all in on it. Okay? I said it. You want your feelings hurt? Great. That's on you. I'm telling you why it hasn't been shown to the public and the investigation hasn't gone anywhere. So that's a summary of what most people already have heard about with the DNC pipe bomber. Is out here. You got cameras. You can pull up all that stuff. You got witnesses, I'm sure. And then you also have cameras from where the person was here and where the person was there. If you follow along the entire path, you're going to identify how the individual got to where he is here, which vehicle or wherever he came from, and then where he left to. So it would be nice to know which vehicle he left from to get to this vicinity and also departed from the zone. Next up, and we're going to head over to where the RNC pipe bomb was placed. It was right behind the Capitol Hill Club. Part 2 of exposing the January 6th Fedsurrection pipe bomber involves what people say the RNC. Let me be a little bit more specific to you. It's not the RNC where the pipe bomb was placed. It was behind the Capitol Hill Club. See, it says Capitol Hill Club. And I'll show exactly where it was. Come follow me. I've already done this investigation. Who hasn't done the investigation and publicly exposed and disclosed what they've been working on to a sufficient transparent level? I like to name names because they haven't done their job. And I'm here to embarrass them in front of the American public for them not doing their job for the last 2 years. Barry Loudermilk, slow, ineffective, ineffectual. Why? Because he doesn't want to disclose the U.S. Capitol Police for their transgressions because they're the ones that provide him protection and probably have dirt on him or his staff, okay? Also Jim Jordan potentially, right? What happened with the pipe bomb investigation and the DOJ and the FBI? And they're going to say, oh, well, even though we controlled the House, the White House wasn't complying with us. Bull. See this right here? See these trash bins? We're just behind the Capitol Hill Club. A woman comes out in one of these places, like one of these apartments, whatever it is, comes out to throw out her trash and sees a pipe bomb placed right here and then reports it. Guess how the reporting goes? It goes something like this. And I'll tell you how I got this information. Wow, she knows that this is the Capitol Hill Club, right? And she knows that this is the RNC over here, possibly. And then so, we walk over here, and lo and behold, the reason why it's called the RNC pipe bomb is because guess who's in charge of security over here at Capitol Hill Club? And the RNC. Let's zoom in. What does it say right here? National Republican Center, right? Well, guess who was the head of security that day that responded to that and to call in the pipe bomb here over at the RNC? A guy by the name of Ken Capolino. Look him up. He was a former U.S. Capitol Police officer before he became a contractor here. I think it was for Colorado Security Company at the RNC. And because he was a former Capitol Police officer, instead of calling the Metropolitan Police Department, he calls, because he could have done either one, right? And so he calls up and says, hey, U.S. Capitol Police, there's a pipe bomb. Now let's go back. If the pipe bomb was placed back there and the pipe bomber was walking around, where are the cameras at? There's a camera over there. Okay? There's a camera over there. Okay? There's a camera over there. Okay? I mean, this is just basic math over here. Looking around, where are the cameras at? Oh, there's a camera right there. As we walk through here, right? There's a camera right there. There's a camera right there. There's a camera right up there. See that? And again, I'm identifying this real time as you're watching me do this. Okay? Is it possible that other people had cameras out? There's plenty of cameras to cover this entire zone. One there, potentially of that angle, to be able to identify him. Now, what if he moves and walks this way? Then we start to engage with other cameras that are possibly out here. Maybe he gets in the visual of that if he walks down through this alley from that camera angle. That one looks more like a U.S. Capitol Police CCTV footage camera, because that's the ones that they use. There's one right there. Now, some of these belong to the U.S. Capitol Police. Some of these belong to the Metropolitan Police Department. And some of them belong to the RNC Or, for example, these over here. So it begs the question, who's been responsible for the investigation into collating all the CCTV footage by U.S. Capitol Police, all the MPD video footage, all of the DNC, in this case, RNC footage? What about the Hill House over here? Because some of the cameras belong to them. How about we compile all of that, America? Because guess what? We're a month in? Still no answers. Still no answers. My patience is wearing thin. America's patience has already been expended. So for our country not to move into a more tenuous situation where everyone sees that the entire government is a failed government across all three branches of government, I'm stepping in that breach to address what the Article 1 branch of government should be doing, Article 2 branch of government should be doing, so that at the end of the day, we can have some of these state AGs as well as district attorneys at the county level be able to pick up the necessary slack so that we start to continue to recover as a nation. Because so far, folks, the quote biggest threat that occurred on January 6th that day, 2 pipe bombs, not a peep, not a, like crickets. No one has done or said anything. And the defense is, oh, but they're just starting. Bro, how many days did it take for them to raid hundreds of First Amendment rally attendees after January 6th? Today is March the 2nd as we're talking right now. How many First Amendment election justice rally attendees post January 6th of 2021 were already raided, swatted, arrested, jailed, imprisoned? We haven't seen a single one thus far for all the transgressions that have occurred over the last 8 years by this current Department of Justice. In the absence of leadership, someone has to step forward and expose the rot across the board of both political parties. 12:30, January 6th, 2021. Peace Circle. Guess what, folks? As I looked through the video evidence, what the CCTV footage of the U.S. Capitol had that was finally released in the last Congress, I focused in on this right here. So while down there, if you want to take a look with me, down there at the ellipse, people came through when the speech by President Trump was done or finishing up. People came down here and they started to move down here. But here's what happened before they started moving in this direction. A lot of people know about the Ray Epps breach location, but there's a sequence of events that took place over 30 minutes prior to that initial breach that everybody talks about when Ray Epps whispers into Ryan Samsel's ear and they do a breach. That is actually known as outer breach number 2, okay? And I'm gonna step you through and talk to you about what took place before the outer breach number 1, outer breach 2, outer breach 3, and then the rest is where the MPD and the U.S. Capitol Police went completely outside of their norms and started attacking the crowd. So this is what occurred. So right here, as you watch the video footage, and you can go ahead and take a look at this on the Rumble channel of the Oversight Subcommittee on House Admin from the last Congress. Loudermilk's team put that out. Thanks to them for putting that out, I guess. So right here, an individual that was dressed with no skin showing, sunglasses, mask, I think it was a black jacket, blue pants, and a backpack. Similarly dressed, not exactly, how the pipe bomber the previous day was dressed, okay? So it's possible that it's the same person, but I'm not saying that it is. It's something that we need to check. It's easy to check when you check cell phone, GPS, grid coordinate location data of the pipe bomber down at RNC and DNC that we just discussed, as well as the guy that was standing here alone. At 12:30, 30 minutes before the joint session started, a guy was standing right here in the middle. Why? Because this is clearly the perfect location to observe and report for anybody following on forces that are coming in from the ellipse and to be able to manage, guide, incite, and direct the Fedsurrection, right, folks? The first fence line was right here. So the guy was standing right here. There was no signage. It was just a fence, just like you see right there. There was no sign that said, do not trespass, authorized personnel only. It was just a fence. That's the outer perimeter 1. This dude was standing. The most that you would see him move is like this for 30 minutes. Now ask yourself a question. Is that normal for someone to stand right here for 30 minutes without moving like that even? Just standing with a backpack next to him for 30 minutes. But guess what? During that 30 minutes, Two individuals come up to him, exchange a little bit. Can't hear it because it's just video. And then leave. As we get closer to 1 o'clock, say 12:53, is where that breach occurs because enough people come over here, and that guy right here is part of that initial outer breach. That's where we move to here. Do, 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 do. See this right here? They're about to set it up. This is what I like to call perimeter number 2 site, outer breach perimeter, which is right here. You can see the lots of footage that was out there where Ray Epps is whispering in Ryan's ear saying, "We don't have enough people yet, bud." What does Ray Epps know that we don't? Remember, outer breach perimeter 1 over there, outer breach perimeter 2 right here. No one from the government, from Loudermilk's committee, from Jim Jordan's weaponization judiciary committee, from Speaker Johnson's office, from John Thune's office, from the Senate Rules office, because we're technically on the Senate side over here. No one from the DOJ, no one from mainstream media, no one from big tech talks about the initial breach site right here, nor the individual that was reconning and surveilling this site for the breach on January 6th as early as 12:30 physically. I wonder what he was planning before that. Something worthy of investigation, America? I would think so. That's why I'm here. So we move on to outer breach site 2. Right here, you can even see here that they're setting up similarly how they set up to protect the Capitol. You have the fencing is going to go up over there, and this metal fence is going to be here. So then as they're, okay, he's whispering in his ear, next thing you know, they tear down the fencing, and this is where you see the first line of U.S. Capitol Police officers right here standing. One of them falls, hits her head, right, in the steps over here. Carolyn, I believe her name is. I can't recall her full name. Moving on towards outer breach number 3. Come follow me as we go through. Now, people walked around on the other side of that little small half-size barricades on the left and right. While that's all going on, there's wooden picketing fence that was also taken down concurrently with the Ray Epps breach site. It's so choreographed, America. Why is it so precise, the choreographed breach and the movement? Well, if you want to know the details of that, it's because they had to have people come in because guess what was going on the inside? On the inside, you had Paul Gosar and Ted Cruz objecting to Arizona. And had they voted by state delegation on the objection during the objection period, that would have blocked any candidate for president from receiving Arizona's votes. And had they done that to Pennsylvania and Arizona at a minimum, no one would have secured the necessary presidential votes to be president until there was a contingent election, which had the vote taken place similar to how the objections by state delegations took place, then you would have had a guaranteed Trump re-election. That's why Nancy Pelosi ordered the Fedsurrection, America. So now let's take a look here. This is so important. Zoom in on this. It says here, United States Capitol Police, area closed by order of the U.S. Capitol Police Board. Let me explain what that means to the common lay person. The U.S. Capitol Police is the senior law enforcement entity on the grounds here, concurrently with Metropolitan Police Department. On the inside of the Capitol, it's solely the jurisdictional zone of the U.S. Capitol Police. But guess what? If the Capitol Police Board wants someone arrested just for blinking and breathing improperly because of political reasons, then they tell the U.S. Capitol Police to go ahead and arrest them for political reasons. Guess who consists of the Capitol Police Board? It's a 4-person body. One is an ex officio member, non-voting, which is the Capitol Police Chief, and the other 3 are the 2 sergeants at arms, the Senate Sergeant at Arms, the House Sergeant at Arms over there, and the architect of the Capitol. So if 2 of those 3 voting members of the Capitol Police Board are controlled by one party, and that one party wants to do everything in its power to frame and arrest someone because of their political objectives, then they just do it. There's no they don't request permission. They don't need to justify it. They just do it because that's the authority that they have. And when they can control the media through big tech relationships, because their buddy, Jim Baker, the former general counsel of the FBI, is now sitting at Twitter 1.0 as the deputy general counsel, all they have to do is say, hey, Jim, why don't you coordinate the censorship regime as it applies to the illegal election? Oh, you can't say that. Cancel anyone talking about the stolen illegal election. Censor and cancel and suspend anybody talking about the plandemic. Censor and cancel and suspend anybody talking about the COVID jabs. And only content that says that they're safe and effective in order to promote the product that we're all making money off of, that's the narrative that can be allowed on big tech. Meanwhile, while you're doing that, Jim Baker, Deputy General Counsel at Twitter 1.0, why don't you work that through not only Twitter, but also with Mark Zuckerberg? And if you need assistance, why don't you talk to our previous guy that helped us spy on the Trump campaign, the guy that ran Crossfire Hurricane, remember Joe Pientka III, and his intel buddy, Brian Auten? Guess what? Big Brian Auten is over at the Foreign Influence Task Force at FBI headquarters just down the road. Turn it up. FBI headquarters is just down the road here on Pennsylvania Avenue on the right, okay? And the DOJ is on the other side. So this is all right here. So basically, the Capitol Police Board, appointed by Pelosi, Paul Irving, the House Sergeant at Arms, Mitch McConnell's Senate Sergeant at Arms, Michael Stenger, who was about to release information about the Fedsurrection, but was offed, apparently, before he was going to testify. And then the architect of the Capitol was removed as the architect of the Capitol because guess what? On January 6th, he wasn't even here, one of the members of the board. He was teleworking at home. And they removed him, they being the Biden criminal syndicate once they took office. They leveraged Speaker Kevin McCarthy to go ahead and, as first order of business of the House Admin Committee, was to have Brett Blanton, who was the architect of the Capitol, for him to testify about him using the command vehicle for personal use, and for that reason they removed him. So now at that point in time, in January, February of 2023, the entire Capitol Police Board was Democrat, basically. So if the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader on January 6th want to create a Fedsurrection and call it an insurrection, they just do it because they're the ones with the authority to do that. And then they leverage big tech and their relationships with MSLSD. Remember, Pelosi is really tight with MSNBC because guess who likes to talk about national security stuff on MSNBC? Andy McCabe. What about at Criminal News Network? Jim Comey, the former FBI director. And what about John Brennan, the former CIA director? All they have to do is say, hey, we're going to run a Fedsurrection to stop the Ivan Raiklin play from taking place inside the Capitol, guaranteeing a Trump election. And instead, we're going to do the Fedsurrection, but we're going to call it an insurrection. And how do they do it? They have the authority. It doesn't say here, but the jurisdictional zone of the U.S. Capitol Police and the Capitol Police Board sits inside of 2 U.S. Code, Section 1967, Paragraph Bravo. It lists the streets upon which the U.S. Capitol Police have jurisdiction, which extends to Union Station over there and extends beyond where we were earlier today, beyond the DNC and the RNC pipe bomb locations. So if the Capitol Police Board, at the behest of Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, and then later Chucky Boy Schumer, want to run a Fedsurrection and the subsequent cover-up, they have all the cards based on the jurisdiction because no other outside law enforcement entity outside of MPD and USCP can investigate their Fedsurrection. And then the cover-up is allowed to take place based on another statute authorizing the U.S. Capitol Police. Title II, U.S. Code, Section 1979, Paragraph B, again this time. And in that Paragraph B, it says who the authority is on releasing the CCTV footage. Notice all the cameras everywhere? It's the Capitol Police Board that decides whether or not that's considered security information or not. And guess what happens with that security information? Come walk with me. So if Nancy Pelosi wants only incriminating, inculpatory information to be sent over to the DOJ so they can weaponize against every single J6er that Pelosi wants to weaponize against, all she has to do is tell her Capitol Police General Counsel, Thomas Aquinas Tad DeBias, to go ahead and come up with a strategy to compel and coerce U.S. Capitol Police officers that have a rap sheet of a HR file that you can leverage and say, hey, Harry Dunn, hey, Acanilo Ganell, hey, David Lazarus, hey, Julie Farnham, hey, Yogananda Pittman, hey, Dania Newell. Why don't you go ahead and put together perjurious sworn statements that criminalize the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, and all of our political targets, and then write it up, sign it, General Counsel Tad Tobias will review it to make sure it fits with our political narrative and objectives of weaponizing against all J6ers. And then when we look at it, if it fits what we need to do, then we're going to send it over to the DOJ for them to use that as evidence, along with the CCTV footage that you have to match with what the compelled perjurious testimony that we just compelled out of these U.S. Capitol Police officers. So on one hand, only the CCTV footage that Pelosi and company wanted to use as incriminating and what's called inculpatory evidence. And there's no audio, by the way, in the video of the USCP. You only have audio with MPD, right? Metropolitan Police Department. And so like CCTV footage coupled with the perjurious lies compelled by leadership of USCP, Capitol Police Board, and the political leaders of both of the bicameral legislative branch. You have USCP officers perjuring themselves. Let's keep walking as I explain this. You have General Counsel Thomas Tobias, signed off by the acting Capitol Police Chief from January 8th to July 20, I think, 1st of 2021, Yogananda Pittman, and then later Thomas Manger, who is still the U.S. Capitol Police Chief, and he was appointed at the direction of Jamie Raskin, because guess what? Thomas Manger is a constituent of Jamie Raskin. He's tight with him, and their families are tight. Jacqueline Manger, Thomas Manger are tight with Sarah Raskin and Jamie Raskin. So Jamie Raskin tees up this guy, Thomas Manger, to continue this cover-up scheme, to push the evidence of this CCTV footage that is only incriminating. And then when somebody, for example, like an oath keeper is saying, hey, I'm here to help you, officer, on video, it just shows the oath keeper yelling. But the David Lazaruses of the world says that oath keeper was yelling at Harry Dumb, even though that oath keeper wasn't, or even though David Lazarus wasn't even in the vicinity, and he's putting forth sworn testimony saying that he was, and he's saying what the oath keeper was saying. It's total perjurious lies. Let's continue. So the General Counsel of the U.S. Capitol Police takes that evidence, sends it over to the DOJ for processing as they pull Facebook. Remember, Facebook is a surrogate of FBI at this time. Twitter is a surrogate of the FBI. So then they take incriminating statements that are First Amendment protected speech from these platforms of those that are being weaponized against by the legislative branch, so that the FBI can then build more evidence against their political opponents in order to stop those that had the courage to stand up here and say, you know what, the 2020 election was illegal. It was illegitimate. The illegitimate regime by Biden was then used to weaponize against those individuals so that the Fedsurrection and the electoral heist would not be exposed. But guess what? Some of us won't bend a knee, and that's why we're at where we're at. So Article 1 branch of government weaponization, I explained it. Article 2 branch of government weaponization, I explained it briefly here. And so while that's going on, the processing at the FBI, over here in the House, Pelosi creates the January 6th Fedsurrection Cover-Up Committee. 10 hearings as they lie their way through the court of public opinion with their allies in big tech and big media, promulgating the big lie that it was an insurrection and that it was a legitimate election and that the clot shots are safe and effective, right? All that. While that's going on, that information is duping this entire city. The entire jury pool is being poisoned with lies, saying that this was an insurrection. And so by the time this city's jury pool goes into the DC District Courthouse, which is, by the way, right here on this corner, see that little circle building right there? That's the DC District Federal District Court for the District of Columbia. Also, that's where the appeals court is for the District of Columbia. That's also where the FISA court is in the District of Columbia. Remember? That's another story we can get into as we walk over here. So anyway, by the time the court is hearing these cases of the Oath Keepers, of the Proud Boys, of all J6 defendants, right there, literally walking distance right there, like zoom in. I mean, we're going to get to there by the time I finish my sentence practically. So the victims purportedly are the ones that are the judges, and the victims purportedly are the jury pool. So if you present to the court doctored, manipulated CCTV footage by the Article 1 branch of government back there, You match that with perjurious sworn testimony to fill in the gaps for what is not heard because there's no audio on the CCTV footage, to make it sound like the worst thing ever in the history of humanity, those J6ers did. Take that, add a layer of bias and manipulation with what was pulled from Twitter and Facebook by the FBI, and then presented by the U.S. Attorney, Matt Graves, and his staff and assistant U.S. attorneys over here with all of that fake evidence and presented to this court, while that judge and the jury pool of D.C. just spent 2 years consuming the lies of the hearings over at the House and the mainstream BS. What conviction rate will you get in the D.C. court? Nearly 100% to perpetuate the insurrection lie. To recap, the weaponization against all J6ers started at the Capitol, continued over there at the DOJ a few blocks down and the FBI, and then ended at the courtroom, all while the mainstream media and big tech was complicit in covering for the Fedsurrection. And that includes faux news. Some people pronounce Fox News. And here is why. Nancy Pelosi's Sergeant-at-Arms, one of the 3 voting members of the Capitol Police Board, Paul Irving, was the Sergeant-at-Arms for Paul Ryan, the Republican Speaker of the House before Nancy, and the Republican Speaker of the House, John Boehner, before Paul Ryan. So this guy, Paul Irving, has dirt on all of those 3 speakers of the House because the Sergeant-at-Arms has access and control over all IT and all CCTV footage. So if there's any transgressions that were conducted by those 3 speakers of the House, their staff, the Sergeant-at-Arms knows about it. So I'm guessing they cut a deal. And I'm guessing that this is what happened based on my investigation that no one else has done because they are incompetent or complicit or just straight up buffoons. Paul Ryan, remember, is still a board member of Fox News, faux news. You think that Paul Ryan's going to want to throw his Sergeant-at-Arms that worked for him under the bus for helping Nancy Pelosi with the Fedsurrection? I don't think so. You think he's going to use his platform, Fox News, to expose this? Guaranteed not. How do I know this? That is exactly why Paul Ryan fired Tucker Carlson. Remember when Tucker Carlson, after Kevin McCarthy became the Speaker of the House, started to get access to the CCTV footage, and Tucker Carlson started to do stories with what was the shaman guy, Jacob Chansley? What was the very first? All of a sudden, Tucker Carlson comes out with this footage of no violence, nothing, just a dude walking around in the Capitol, unarmed, peaceful. Chucky Boy Schumer goes onto the stage and says, "Hey, Rupert Murdoch, this cannot happen." Speaker Pelosi says, "This cannot happen." Everybody on both, and Mitch McConnell said the same thing. They go into complete meltdown frenzy to stop Tucker Carlson from exposing the Fedsurrection. Okay? So they fire him. They let him go a little bit, but it wasn't until Tucker Carlson had an interview with the former Capitol Police Chief, Stephen Sund, who a week or so before that interview that Tucker did with Chief Sund, I had lunch with. And I explained to him everything that I'm explaining to you right now. And it's no wonder why that interview has never aired to this day. Because I suspect that that interview exposes some of what I just explained to you. Where it was a Pelosi-led covert action Fedsurrection in coordination with some of the names I mentioned. The DOJ, the FBI, DHS, DC Metropolitan Police Department, that worked in subordinate to the Capitol Police Board, or I should say subordinate to the Capitol Police Board, because they're the ones with the jurisdiction. You saw the sign. You just saw the sign with me. They're the ones that have the authority to run a Fedsurrection. And who was it? Paul Irving. And he was provided cover by Nancy Pelosi through MSLSD and Criminal News Network, CNN, MSNBC. And Paul Ryan provided cover for that Fedsurrection over at Fox News. Now do you understand why the government is never going to get to the truth of the pipe bombs that were the distraction necessary to divert USCP assets over to that area to address, and MPD assets, while the Fedsurrection play was going on right here, with the purpose of stopping my plan, which was voting by state delegation to guarantee a Trump re-election, from occurring, and instead flip the script and say that this was an insurrection so that some of the weak-kneed, non-complicit Republicans would not vote according to how I explained to them. I personally talked to over a dozen, maybe 2 dozen Republican members of the Congress going into January 6th on what their obligation was that day, which was to object because the states ran their elections under COVID measures, which violated their state election law, which thus triggered a violation of Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution. While I'm alive, I will continue to expose the Fedsurrection. And now that almost all of the J6ers are out, we're not going to rely and wait for Barry Loudermilk. We're not going to rely and wait for Jim Jordan. We're not going to rely and wait on Speaker Mike Johnson, Majority Leader John Thune, Senate Rules Committee Chairman Mitch McConnell, or the DOJ, or the FBI, or any of these institutions, because guess what? They have proven to us that they are complicit. Now we investigate them. And guess what? Because we have free speech like Rumble and X, and I suspect those two CEOs were not complicit based on my research in the Fedsurrection, they're going to have to make a choice on whether or not they're going to be on the side of the truth, no matter the cost, or are they going to protect those that are currently still in our institutions, both parties over here, both political party appointments over there at the DOJ, at the courthouse, or at the FBI U.S. Attorney's Office. I could care less. I am going to expose the truth. I don't care where the chips fall. So if you didn't have a fingerprint on the Fedsurrection and you know more about it, you know how to reach me. But at this point, I think I've already talked to all the whistleblowers. Now we move on to embarrassing those that should have already exposed this into creating so much pressure on them from the court of public opinion for them to act that they have no option other than to expose the Fedsurrection and apologize for their complicity at a minimum. Stay tuned.